Hello everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to wait a couple minutes for everybody to get into the room. I'm Michael Harbridge and we are going to be doing the chunky puzzling technique tonight. This is the effect that we're going to be getting, and I'll talk about how I came up with this technique and how you guys can do that. I'm doing a lot of different things. We do have a little twist tonight with the mystery box, which I'll talk about in a minute if you didn't see my post about a half hour ago. We're changing things up, but you can go ahead and type in mystery box. My wife Janine is here. She's going to mark all the names down of the people who say mystery box, and they'll be put in for a drawing for the mystery box toward the end of the live event tonight. So, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I see we got quite a few people that have made it in. We'll wait just another minute here. If you didn't see, we're going to be doing the chunky puzzling technique. I'll be showing you how to do that tonight, and that can be used on lots of different shapes. Tonight we're going to be doing it on some new flower pot molds, and but I've done the gourds, I've done vases, I've done pumpkins, I've done all different types of shapes in these, and I've worked with lots of different types of clay bodies as well. We're going to be working tonight with low fire earthenware, and you can also do this with mid-range clay, and different color clay bodies work really well with it too. So we're going to get started. I'm going to talk about the mystery box and the change that we have tonight. It is a much larger mystery box that we've got tonight. Instead of the medium flat rate box, it's the large flat rate box. There's so much stuff in there. Normally it's $50 and that includes shipping anywhere in the US. Tonight the box is going to be $99 and it will include shipping anywhere in the US. So if you happen to put your name in for mystery box and you're thinking, oh no, I don't want to spend that much, it's fine, because when we draw for the mystery box, we'll announce the name of the person that we drew, and if you decide that you don't want to spend that much on it, just let us know at that point. Just type in that you decline, and we'll draw out another name for that box. But I think when you see what's in that box, you'll be really excited. If you're not familiar with the mystery box, I don't tell you what's in there. I just tell you the value of it, and the value of it tonight is $215. And it's going to be $99 for whoever gets their name drawn. Now, for those of you that don't get the mystery box, but you still want what's in that kit, you'll be able to purchase that, and I'll talk about that later on, how you'll be able to do that. So I'm going to set this big, heavy box out of the way. What I'll tell you about tonight is it really has absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing tonight. It has nothing to do with the chunky technique. I was going to take a bunch of dried up clay and put it in a box as a joke, and I just ran out of time to do that. So what I will tell you about it is it has nothing to do with tonight, and it is non-fired. And so that kind of leads you to believe it might be paint, it might be brushes in there, and maybe some new products that we've got. So I'm going to just set that out of the way here, and we will get started. So the technique we're doing is the chunky puzzling. And this technique I kind of discovered by mistake one day. I was cleaning up my workspace, and I have a tendency to be working on about a dozen different projects at a time, and I had some wet red clay, just some chunks that were half dried up, and then there was some white clay that was out there, and I took that red clay and I just started going like this and picking up the dry chunks that were on there, and I flipped it over and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so that's kind of how the technique started. So I'm going to flip the camera down. I'm going to show you guys how we do this technique, and I've got a piece of this craft foam out on my surface. We're going to be working inside of clay puzzling molds, and these are two new designs that we have. This is a smaller planter, and then we have a new larger planter as well. And I just put these up on the website a little while ago, and I know somebody's going to ask about the measurements of them. I do have the measurements on the website. I want to say the big one is about 10 inches wide by about 8.5 high. Small one is about 6 inches wide by 4.5 high, I think was the dimensions. I'm going to be working tonight with low fire red clay, but like I said earlier, you can do this with any type of clay body. So if you have a mid-range clay body, you can work with a mid-range. If you've got different colors, a lot of those mid-range clays come in browns and in different shades of color. I like working with a darker clay body as my main color, and then working with white clay as my chunks that are embedded in there. People always ask, well, could I use white clay in the background and red chunks of clay? You can, but what ends up happening is that white clay that's in the background tends to pick up some of the powder from the dry red clay, and it kind of gets looking pink. And that's not the worst thing, but it's not quite as crisp as the darker background with the lighter chunks. What you want to make sure is that the two clay bodies that you work with are pretty compatible as far as how they shrink. So you don't want to take a dry clay body that is low fire clay and then do a mid-range or high fire clay for your background color of your moist clay body. Make sure that they both are similar as far as their firing range and how much they shrink. The reason we go with a moist clay and a dry clay is we're going to take and we're going to bust up this dry clay. And you can just bust it up with your fingers. You can bust it up in a bag with a hammer. This is basically a piece of low fire earthenware white clay of something that broke, and so I have a tub that I throw that stuff in so that I have dry pieces that I can use for this technique. And so I'm going to bust a bunch of this up, and I don't want giant pieces. Like this would be the biggest piece that I would have, so nothing probably over an inch. Little pieces are good, and you want to just kind of cover your work surface with broken pieces of white clay. And so this is where my work surface, when I kind of discovered this technique by accident, was I had, like I said, white clay and I had some red clay, and I was just kind of cleaning up, and I had this little scrap of red clay that was out there, and I kind of took that and I went like this, and I was picking up the dry pieces of clay, and when I flipped it over, all those pieces were embedded in there, and I'm like, oh, that is really cool. The reason it works really well for this technique is because the background clay that you're using that picks up those dry pieces, the dry pieces have already shrunk. So as this background color of clay, which I'm using the red, as that dries, it shrinks, and as it shrinks, it really grabs those pieces tight. Now, occasionally, you may have a piece here and there that will fall out, and it's not a big deal because you will get a deep indentation. See if I've got one on here, like this here, where a piece fell out, but when I do my wash of glaze that we'll talk about later, it leaves an indentation in there. I see somebody ask about broken pieces, not bisque, right? Correct. This is broken pieces of dry clay. If you use bisque, the bisque pieces have already shrunk in the clay stage, and then they've shrunk more in firing. So if you go with too big of chunks in there, that red clay is going to shrink a lot, and the white pieces won't shrink at all, and then you may end up with some cracking coming out from around there. That's another reason I don't go with pieces much bigger than probably an inch in size, because if you go with too big of pieces, as that moist clay shrinks around it, you can get some kind of cracks coming out, which isn't the end of the world if you end up with some little cracks coming out on there. So you're just going to take pieces of whatever clay you have in the background, whether it's low fire red like I'm working with, or it's a mid-range or a high fire clay body, kind of spread your chunks of dry clay out, and then just take and press those pieces in to pick up the white clay. And set these aside, and you're going to do a whole bunch of them because we're going to press those into the mold. Now, the thickness of this red piece of clay is going to be about the thickness that I would normally do clay puzzling. If you haven't done clay puzzling, we're going to press this inside of these bisque forms, and so we want these to be up to about 1/4 of an inch thick. Bigger pieces, I would go a little bit thicker. So I'm just going through and I'm just pressing, and you can do this really quick. Every once in a while, you want to kind of spread out your dry chunks so that you don't have them bunched together too much in one area. It's okay on some of them to have a lot of the little powdery stuff on there. So I'm just going to go along and continue to pick up pieces and set these aside. I'm not worried about all of these chunks being the same size. People will ask often, you know, can I just roll out a slab of the red clay and do this? And you can, but half of the coolness of this design is where all of these pieces of clay meet up, you get all of these cool lines when you do your wash of glaze on top. So I like to do some a little bit bigger and some a little bit smaller pieces. And as my dry clay runs out, I'm going to just kind of sweep it together here, and then I'll break up some more. So these pieces don't have to be perfectly round. You can see I'm just very quickly tearing off pieces of clay, pressing it in. And if I pick it up and there's, you know, there isn't much on there, I can always repress it in another area to pick up some more chunks. If any chunks fall out, not a big deal. Don't worry about if a few chunks fall out and it leaves an indentation in the clay. Once I've run out of pieces, I'm just going to do the small pot tonight, so I'm going to break up some more of this. I see Bridget asked about can you use a white background with red pieces? And you may not have been here right at the beginning when I talked about that. You can, but what I find is sometimes the powder from the red dry clay makes the white background clay kind of pink. So I think the colors come out a lot better, but yeah, you can use any color of clay for your background or for your dry chunks. I see there's a question too about now Janine's writing the mystery box, and we're going to be closing that off here in a couple of minutes.
There are some comments that were made for it like a while ago.
Yeah, and so she's doing that. So we're gonna as soon as my clock hits 6:45, we're gonna close off the mystery box. Can you use, somebody asked if you can dried clay with underglaze. Yes, if you've got clay-based underglaze like cover coats or Mako's UG colors, their foundations, those you could do chunks with color on as well. You could take white moist clay and add some colorants to it and let it dry out as well. Now the clay will, whatever color clay you go with, will stain the mold a little bit, and so that is one thing to keep in mind if you start going with a lot of dry oxides and things in there with color, that some of those may stain the mold. Usually you can take a damp sponge and wipe that mold out after you're done using it. A lot of times it will still stain the mold, but it won't necessarily come out on future pieces. Sometimes on the very first piece after that you do, you may get some staining. All right.
Did you answer the question about can you use dried trimmings from trimming a bowl?
Oh no, I missed that one. So that, yeah. So basically, this dry clay that I've got, this is a broken pumpkin. I can tell this is the bottom of a pumpkin. So yeah, your trimmings from scrap from when you're casting pieces will work. A lot of times I'll just take, when I'm working with white clay or red clay, I'll just take those scraps. You know, sometimes you get little chunks out there that are kind of dry that aren't real moist to put in with your clay to reuse. And so I will a lot of times save those and just throw them aside and let them dry out completely. All right, so the mystery box is closed off. We've got another question.
When you fire it, do the pieces of clay stay in the bisque or do they fall out?
So the pieces of clay, you may have missed that in the beginning too. So the reason I go with wet clay and dry chunks is because that moist clay, as it dries, it shrinks, and the white clay has already shrunk here. So that red clay shrinks and it gets real tight around there. Occasionally you will have some pieces that will fall out, and while we're doing the puzzling you may have some pieces that fall out. But what you'll wind up with is an indentation in the piece, and when you do your wash of glaze on top, That glaze will go into those indentations and any of the lines from the puzzling. This is what it looks like. I did half of this piece. I didn't do glaze on it to show you. This is how it looks after firing, and so there may have been a chunk there that fell out, but for the most part, these chunks are embedded in there because of the wet clay shrinking as it dries. Now, I selected a mold tonight that has a wide opening in it so that I can get my hand down inside and so that you guys can see. But things like this gourd had a smaller opening on the bottom, and this one I didn't use because it's so hard for you guys to see inside when I'm doing this live. So normally I would open the mold up, take the Velcro strap off of it, and I would do my puzzling in each side of the mold. And so I'm going to start kind of on the bottom side of this, and if chunks fall out as you're setting that in there, just leave them, because you're going to take and you're going to press these pieces in with the chunky side facing down into the mold. I'm going to fill this in right up to the seam line. And I'm just going to go over all of this. And as I press them in, I want them to overlap slightly. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to kind of mash this together once I get all of the chunks inside here. And we'll see how well I did with guesstimating how many pieces I was going to need. I've got the one side, the clay pressed. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Are there
sharp edges from when it's fired? Like,
no, there really aren't, because
kind of embedded.
They're embedded. You can feel that, but I'm not worried. I'm running my hand all over this. I'm not worried about cutting myself on there, because when you press the clay into it, those chunks are pretty flush with the top of the clay. You can feel the texture on there, but I'm not worried about cutting myself. But that's a good question. I hadn't ever even thought of that. Looks like I'm going to have a few extra pieces here, which is fine. When I end up with a little space like this, I can just take and break off a section of one of these. And now what I want to do is go back, and where all of those pieces of clay meet, I want to just kind of drag my finger across and really squish that together and fill in all of those gaps where those pieces of clay meet. And so when somebody was just asking about are there sharp edges, by pressing this so hard against the mold, it really squishes those chunks tight into the red clay and really flattens and levels that out so that the chunks are pretty level with the top of the red clay. Now if I've got little areas like this that don't have any clay, I can take and just tear off some of these right up to that seam.
Would this technique work with leather hard chunks as long as the clays are the same shrinkage?
It would, but the thing with moist chunks of clay, when I've got these bunched up here and I take this clay and I press it into it, those dry chunks stick in there and they keep their shape. If you do wet pieces of clay, there's a good chance as you press down, all of these pieces that are left here are just going to be squished together and they're going to be solid. So the dry clay works better. Leather hard is better than completely soft and moist, but it's best if the pieces are dry. Because again, they've already shrunk, and so then as that red clay that I'm using shrinks, it's going to grab those pieces a lot tighter. Otherwise, you'd have them both shrinking at the same rate almost if you worked with even leather hard clay, and then those pieces may not get embedded and held in there as well. All right, so I've got pretty much this all filled in. I've got some little areas here and there where I'm going to just take and squish some clay in where I need it. And then I want to take some more of the red clay, and I'm just going to make a coil, and it doesn't need to be exact and perfect, but I usually say it should be about the diameter of my pinky, and some areas might be a little bit thicker, some might be a little thinner. And on one half of the mold, I'm going to take and I'm going to press this around so that it's on the inside edge. Now, any of this clay that sticks up above, I can take a needle tool or a ribbon tool, and I can go along the top edge of this mold because I don't want anything sticking over, because when I put the two halves together, that'll get caught between the two halves. So I'll just take this needle tool and scrape across here to remove any clay that goes up above that seam line on both halves. Whoops. Now that coil, I'm only doing on one of the halves. And the reason I've got that coil and it's down below that seam line, it's not sticking up above it, it's down below, is so that when I put these two together, and I put that Velcro strap back on here, I can take and I can squish that coil that's on this half of the mold, I can squish it over to the other side to attach the two halves and to fill in that gap where the two sides meet up. Now, if you can't get your hand inside the mold like I can with this one, that's what the clay puzzling press tools are for. They come with or without a light. I like it with the light because in molds with narrow openings like the gourd, it shines light in there and I can see inside that dark mold. And I can use the ball end on here to squish that coil onto the other side.
Someone would like to know if you have to use the puzzling molds.
Well, you can do this technique with casting molds, but I will warn you that the plaster casting molds, if you use a red clay body like this and it stains your casting mold and then you go and you pour greenware out of that mold, your first or second casting after will have kind of a red, swirly, almost a marbly look to it. So you probably don't want to do this in casting molds with different colors of clay. You can do this inside of like bisque bowls and things that the clay can be lifted away from. You can do it with like slump and hump forms, plaster forms, but again, the color clays will affect that. You can also use the forms, the GR, like the GR pottery forms. You could do like a slab of clay and then break the chunks up and roll it with a rolling pin and use it like a slab technique to do something like that as well. On the top of the mold, I'm going to take and just trim away the clay that is sticking up above the top on here because I don't want excess clay sticking up above there. And the inside of this, I've got lots of my fingerprints and stuff on there, so I'll usually just take like a washcloth or a piece of fabric that has some texture. This washcloth has nice texture to it, and I'll just take and run this around the edge.
Someone has a good idea, I think, and could I use dry clay that was cut into shapes, like small stars or hearts for the chunks?
Yeah, you could. That's a good idea. You could take the
You'd have to be careful
little,
where you're placing them, I suppose.
yeah, but like the clay punches that I showed a few weeks ago, the stars and the flowers and stuff, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think that would be a really cool idea. Good idea.
Something you didn't think of.
Something I didn't think of, yeah. I might have to try that. That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, and let those dry and then press the moist clay into them. I think that would turn out awesome. So I'm just going to reach inside here. Normally, like on the gourd, obviously I didn't go inside this with a towel to do the texture, but because this is a flower pot and people will see the inside of this, I'm just going to take this towel and press it around to add a nice uniform, even texture throughout this piece. You know what I forgot to grab? I forgot to grab a brush to show how to glaze. Can you go? I do this almost every live. I forget at least one thing. Can you go in back and just grab one of those stiff bristled fan brushes?
Did you do Mr. Bass entry for the first 15 minutes this time?
It ended up, it was about 15 minutes, but we got started a couple minutes late because when I went to go live, Facebook made some of all the information that I had typed in disappear.
A fan brush.
Yeah, stiff fan brush, like from about the third bin on the top. So once I've kind of pressed some texture into the inside, then I can take and remove that Velcro strap, and I can kind of wiggle the one side loose. And what I've got then is my piece with all of my chunks embedded. Now, people at this point sometimes are like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong. The chunks are darker in some areas and lighter in some areas. Thank you. Why is that happening? Well, what's happening is your smaller chunks of clay that were embedded in there, they're absorbing moisture from the wet clay, and so they're turning darker. So don't be alarmed by that. Your bigger chunks aren't absorbing the moisture as quickly as the small chunks, and so it's not quite as noticeable, or it's not as dark when you take it out of the mold. As this dries and lightens, your white chunks will show up, but I'm going to hold it up. You can see some areas there's lots of little chunks embedded in there. Now this piece is small enough that I can take and just put this in my hand and wiggle the other half of the mold off, and I can set those aside. There is kind of a little bit of a seam where the mold halves met up, and so I can use either like a wooden sculpting tool and just kind of go along and scrape away that excess clay that's there, or I can use a flexible metal rib and do the same thing and kind of remove that seam line that's there. I will usually use my finger to kind of smooth that area. A lot of times people want to take water on their pieces at this point, and I usually don't even put water on the table in my workshops because I get people that are dipping their fingers into water and they're trying to smooth it to perfection, and they end up getting the piece so wet that their piece wants to collapse. Now, occasionally, along the seam line, I may look at it and go, you know what, I really need some little chunks embedded. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to put some fingers on the inside, and then I can take and I can embed a chunk right in where that seam line was. I can go down here, and I've got a finger on the back side of this to kind of hold it, and I can press some of these chunks into the clay to kind of disguise where that seam line was. I'm going to look at the other side, and I can do the same thing over here. I can go like this, and I can just push in. Now, if you had a piece that you couldn't get your hand inside, then you would want to take your press tool and put that down into the opening and put that behind the area that you're going to press the clay on to support it. I'm using my finger here on a mold with a narrower opening. I would use the press tool inside there for that. Hope I had a big chunk fall right out of the side here. I'm going to put that back in. That's funny, I haven't had that happen. So this one, this is kind of a big chunk that I had, and it actually fell out of the side as I was pushing with that tool. I was demonstrating that. It actually popped this piece out. I'm going to take a little bit of moist clay, kind of put this in there, and then embed this chunk back into that opening. We'll put a little clay around it to kind of hold it in place. So that's really it for doing the building technique on this. This piece needs to dry really well before you fire it. And people always ask, how long should it fire, or how long should it dry? And it really depends on your conditions. If you have, sometimes people will be like, oh, I put it out on my patio for a week and so it should be dry. And normally I would say, yeah, but we've had a lot of humidity here in Wisconsin, and I know there are other parts of the country too that's had really miserable humid weather, and your pieces might dry during the day in the sun, and then at night it gets cool and damp and it may absorb moisture, and then the next day it dries out again. And so if you put it into the kiln in the morning, there may be moisture in that piece. So what I usually do is I will let the pieces dry naturally for about a week, and I don't blow fans on them. I don't try to force them to dry. Just let them dry naturally. If you have a lot of air movement like fans and things blowing around the area where your clay pieces are drying, sometimes just putting a loose garbage bag over the top just to prevent it from drying too fast. Make sure that the bottom of the piece is sitting on a surface that will absorb moisture. So I wouldn't leave it on one of these foam pads. I would put it on a piece of drywall or some type of a board or something that would absorb moisture. Multiple layers of newspaper underneath also work. A lot of times people will get cracks in the bottom of their pieces, And come to find out, they're putting it on like a laminated tabletop or a board that's laminated. This board that I've got underneath the surface is like a laminate board, and it won't absorb moisture. So make sure that whatever you're setting it on absorbs moisture. Otherwise, what happens is the piece dries from the inside, and the bottom that's against that non-absorbent surface the moisture gets trapped between that surface and the piece. So it's drying inside and shrinking, but the bottom outside can't, and a lot of times you'll get cracks in your pieces as a result of that. So let it dry good for a week naturally. Then I'll usually set clay pieces. If I've got a load firing in the kiln, I'll set some of the pieces on top of there just to make sure that they get extra dry. And then pretty much with every firing now, I do a hold at about 180 to 200 degrees in the beginning of the firing for several hours so that the pieces heat up and the moisture gets worked out of those pieces before it goes into the firing. So if you have a digital kiln, your digital kilns are all capable of, usually there's like a preheat or a soak cycle you can do at the beginning by setting a certain number of hours. Or if you use the ramp hold feature, you can actually program it to go to like 180 and hold for 3 hours. If you've got a lot in the kiln, maybe a little bit longer. Those pieces are holding at that temperature.
Someone's wondering if they use the red clay in a casting mold and it stains the mold, does it make a difference when I pour the mold and glaze that pumpkin orange? Will it show up different?
That's a good question. It really depends on the orange that you're using. If it's a real translucent orange, some of that color might show through because sometimes it'll come through almost like a marbleized look on there. But if you're using a real opaque glaze, you really don't need to worry about that. The opaque glaze will probably cover it, or if you use an underglaze or something on it. Or if you do like a cobblestone or something, texture that's opaque, you shouldn't have to worry about that. But your plaster really absorbs moisture and color and things. And so your mold, it may be a few castings before those pieces are coming out without any coloring on them. You know what else I forgot? I forgot a bowl of water and a sponge.
Wow.
Yeah, oh my gosh, Jean's got to get up again and go into the back. So once the piece then is fired, again, you're going to bisque fire it to whatever clay body you're working with. So if you're working with low fire, I went to an 04. A lot of people working with mid-range and high fire clays, they will do their bisque firing to an 04, which is fine, and then they'll apply their glaze. And then the low fire, I'm going to fire to 06. Mid-range, I might go to a cone 5, cone 6. A high fire, I might go all the way up to cone 10 on those pieces. So I usually pick a dark glaze to use on top of it, because when you wipe it back, you get really nice dark color down in the crevices on there. So I'm working with Mako's Black Ice, one of their element glazes, their EL120, and I'm going to just brush one coat on, and then I'm going to wipe it back with a sponge. You can use any color of glaze on there. I find the darker, the more I like it, because it really stands out. I've already done glaze with purple and yellow and orange and all different colors on a piece, and wiped it back and gotten areas that are different colors on there as well. So you don't have to go with black, but the black ice I like because it kind of has a metallic kind of sparkle to it. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to brush a coat on, and the reason I'm using a stiffer hog bristle fan brush is because I want that glaze to get down into all of those crevices where all of those pieces of clay met up, and all of the places where the chunks of white clay are. I'm just going to do a little area here, and then I'm going to take just my handy dandy little cleaning sponge here. I'm going to wipe up my mess on my surface here first. And a lot of times I'll do this back by the sink, and I'll just have kind of the water running lightly, because your water is going to get dirty really fast with these glazes. But I'm just going to wipe this back, and I'm flipping the sponge over, going to the other side and wiping it back, and those colors just catch in all of those grooves, and they stay in and pick up all of those cool textures on that surface. And that's what and that's
extra pay.
how it fares out. Oh, extra pay. Okay, well, when you're not getting paid anything, yep, we'll double her wage. How about that, Carol? So that's really, I mean, that's how easy it is to do the finish on there. And then this, I'm going to fire to 06. Again, if you're working with other glazes, mid-range and things, you might decide to go to a hotter temperature in that firing. So that's how easy it is, you guys. Are you using a glaze or an underglaze? This is a glaze, so this is one of Mako's.
I do.
See, I see some of the questions pop up before Janine does on hers because I'm actually the host of it, and I guess I see them first. So it is a glaze. You could use underglazes on this as well. The underglazes won't fire out with any shininess to them, but they would work perfectly fine as well. I could clear glaze over this whole thing if I wanted the whole piece to be shiny. Most of the time I like kind of that natural clay body. On my flower pot, I will probably glaze the inside of this, and on the outside I'll probably just do a wash of a dark black glaze on the outside. See if there are any other questions in here. Do you put a clear glaze on top? Yep, I just talked about that, Cindy. See if there's anything else that we've missed here. Yeah, the Valeria, the not having water out. I'll be at her shop next week teaching a workshop, and we're not going to let people have water out there. Some people will sneak it and get it out there, but I'll be watching if anybody does that. So, all right, if there aren't other questions, I'm going to flip the camera back up here. Huh? Yeah, this is really quick and easy, you guys. Yeah, and we're supposed to get storms here tonight, so I was hoping the storms would hold off because I would either have a neurotic dog trying to crawl up my butt, literally almost, or we'd end up losing power or the internet or something. So I'm glad that the storms held off. So if you guys think of any other questions, type them in. I see, can we use stroke and coat? Yep, stroke and coat works great for this technique, and you've got tons of colors to choose from, but the tuxedo works really well. The speckled colors work really well too. So. Yep.
Would a raku glaze look good on it? Can you wipe raku glaze back?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Raku glaze, you would want to probably work with a raku clay body. And the other thing that will happen is when you wipe back the glaze on there, the raku glaze is going to catch in all those crevices, and you'll end up with, depending what glaze you use, some metallic color coming out, but all of your background, even though you've got red clay on here, that black smoke penetrates the bare bisque, and you'll end up with kind of a grayish red color. You won't have that nice vibrant red on there, but you'll have areas that are shiny and dull. And I was just going to turn around here. I thought maybe I had some pieces, no, I don't have any back here behind me, that were done where we wiped back the glaze. But remember, Luann, the black smoke will penetrate any bare bisque pieces and turn it kind of a dark grayish black color, so you won't have that contrast of the red clay. All right.
Someone wants to know if you can put a hole in the bottom for a flower pot.
Oh, absolutely, yep. If I wanted to put a hole in the bottom of this pot, I could take my needle tool, or I could take a punch, and I could go like this, and I could cut a hole, oops, right in the bottom. See if I can punch that out. There, I can see the camera. Yeah, so yeah, you can easily do that while the clay is still wet. Now, when you do larger pieces, I took that one out of the mold immediately. Sometimes on bigger pieces, I'll leave them sit in half of the mold for a little while they firm up. So that large pot, if I was doing this, I might have left the clay in half of the mold once I opened that up, just to kind of firm up a little bit before I pulled it out all the way. Usually, I'll kind of feel the bottom and the sides to see how squishy it is. This piece is, I can take this and I can, it's soft, So you have to be careful with it when you take it out. Actually, if I want this to be oval shaped, I can squeeze it and make it more oval shaped rather than round, but I happen to like the round, so it's back to round here. All right, any other questions?
Well, someone said, what would you use to make a drainage hole, but you just showed that, right?
Yeah, I just used
Okay.
my needle tool. I mean, you could use a toothpick, you could use a scalpel, you could use like punches. A few weeks ago I showed the round circle punches. You could use one of those inside there to punch that hole as well.
And then one other question, any particular reason you used Elements Black Ice rather than Foundation Black?
The only reason I use the black ice is the black ice has kind of a metallic finish to it, so it's probably not showing up real well on the camera. I'll see if you look inside this area here, you can see some of that kind of metallic, and I happen to like that metallic reflection of the black ice. But yeah, the black foundation, the number 9 black, again, you can use almost any color, stroke and coat foundations, Envision glazes, really any gloss glaze. Somebody had asked about using underglazes. You could use underglazes and wipe them back, and then you wouldn't have any shine. You would just have the color in there. You could use like copper washes and oxides and things with mid-range glazes. There's a lot of different things that you can use there as well. So
At the beginning, did you say how big the mold was?
yeah, you know what, I put it on the website, and I'm actually gonna, I've got the website here, and I'm gonna go click on it because I was gonna write down the measurements. I knew somebody would ask. And the large pot, this one measures 10 inches wide by 7.5 inches high. The small one measures 6 inches wide, the one that I made tonight, 6 inches wide by 4.5 tall. And those are a set. It's a brand new mold that we're coming out with. We don't have a lot of inventory on them right now, so if you order them, it is going to be a little bit of a wait. Oh, I see somebody, we're already out of, we had one in stock, and that's already gone. So it'll be a little while, but we'll be caught up pretty much on orders with the exception of a few things that I emailed about the other day by the end of this week. So, and I will also be heading out of town for about 10 days doing workshops down in Florida and Alabama. Those workshops are up on the website as well, that you guys can still register for those. Some of them are full. One of them, I think we have 1 or 2 openings in the one at Weaver's, and we've got a few openings in Dothan, and we've got a few openings in Florida yet, so if you want to join us. All right, and then that reminds me, since I will be gone, I'll actually be coming home in 2 weeks on Wednesday, but I won't be getting home till about 11 o'clock at night. So it's going to be 3 weeks before we have our next live, and I'll be putting information out there. Yep, it's the 18th will be our next live event. So I'm going to reach over here, and we're going to grab the mystery box, and I'm going to flip the camera down here so you guys can see the bowl here with all of the names. We're going to mix these up in here. And we're going to draw a name. Now, if your name is drawn and you don't want the mystery box tonight is $99. It's $215 retail, and the first name that we drew out is Betsy Eager. So Betsy, if you're in here, let us know if you are interested in this mystery box. If you're not, because the price is more tonight, it's $99, and that includes shipping. Just let us know if you're not interested in it, and we'll draw another name out, and then I will open the box up. So for those of you that don't get the $99 special, the same mystery box we've got on the website for $139.99. This is normally $215. It ships free anywhere in the U.S., and it is a large flat rate shipping box. And I don't see that Betsy is responding yet, so if Betsy is not in here, oh, well, I see Lisa. Congrats, Betsy. Yeah, I'm waiting to see if Betsy actually responds. I hope Betsy's here. Betsy's been a good customer too. All right. Oh, there's Betsy. Okay, yes, please. All right. Okay. So if Betsy decides after I open it she doesn't want it, there's still an opportunity to draw for somebody else. So I said it has nothing to do with what we're doing tonight, and most of you know that recently Mako purchased Duncan, and so we have been waiting for the Duncan acrylic colors to come in, and little by little they've been coming in, and we have put together this assortment, and I have to look at my slip of paper here. This box contains 51 acrylic colors, 2-ounce acrylic colors. It also has the gloss brush-on sealer. It has the matte brush-on sealer. It has Thin and Shade, and Thin and Shade a lot of people aren't aware of. And Thin and Shade is a product that's designed to thin the acrylic colors. So if you want to create an antiquing or a wash, Thin and Shade is a good product to use to thin those colors. If you want to make translucent stroke work and things, you can just add Thin and Shade to the color. It also has, we finally got the Duncan No Fire Snow. They come in 4-ounce bottles. And it has the regular No Fire Snow, which is kind of a textured snow. And then it also has the No Fire Snow with glitter in it. And you can't really see the sparkles in here, but there's an iridescent glitter in that snow. So there's 2 4-ounce bottles of those colors. There is a can of the gloss spray. The gloss spray is available. We still don't have the matte spray or any of the other sprays available at this point, so there's a bottle of the gloss spray. There is an assortment of flat and round dry brushes. These are the Royal, the interlocking bristle brushes. It's the best quality dry brush. And then there is an assortment of Gold Taklon acrylic handle brushes. So I see Betsy already said, love it, I'll take it. So Betsy gets this assortment. For the rest of you, if you are interested in this assortment, again, it's available on the website. It is, I believe, item number 2, and it's $139.99, and you get $215 worth of product. We've got 48 of these already created. If you guys place orders for these tonight, they will ship out by the weekend. And once we run out of these, we will get more, but it'll be a few weeks once we run out of them. So I expect we probably are going to run out of these kind of quickly, because it is a really, really good deal. So I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions popping in. And if not, see lots of congratulations to Betsy, which is great. Okay, if we order the box, will you bring it to Florida with you? Yes, Lucy, I can bring that to Florida, and I think I've actually got another box of stuff that's almost ready to ship for you, and I can just bring that down too. I'll double check, but I think I saw a package out there that was in the shipping area for you. All right, will you take boxes to Florida and Alabama? Yeah, so that I will, Luann, I will take those. So if you do order online and you're going to be coming to the Florida show or to any of my workshops in Alabama, just put in the comments section, you know, bring to workshops in Alabama or bring to the Orlando show. How much are the boxes if we order it? Oh, sorry, I missed that. It's $139.99. It's a $215 value, and they are $139.99, and it's item number 2. So when you go into the website, under the live event specials, there's number 1, which is the pay by dollar amount, which is how Betsy's going to pay. She's going to go in and just enter 99 as the quantity and then go through and pay. Anybody else who wants it, use item number 2, I believe it is. I'm just going to look on the website here. I'm pretty sure that's what we numbered it as, so it should be the second item on there. And it's being really slow right now. Yeah, or I'm sorry, no, number 2, it's a whole bunch of numbers. Okay, it's number 3. Number 3 is the limited edition live mystery box non-fired kit. So that's where you will find that on the website. Just looking to see if there's any other questions here. Okay, I see Lucy, I'll bring yours down to Melbourne. Great class. No, Luann, I won't swing through Indiana and drop it off. I won't even be going through your area. I'm going down the other side of Indiana, straight down. If you want to order the larger foundations, black and white, are they available by themselves? They should be, yeah. The black and white foundation should be available individually on my website. If it's not, I'll check tonight after this live and make sure that they are up there, but I believe that they are. The next time you're on, will we get notifications? I didn't this time. So Suzanne, in order to get notifications, when I set up a live event, if you get an invitation for it or you see the posting about it, if you click on that you're planning to attend, you should get a notification and a reminder. I get so many different reminders every day for stuff. I get reminders for stuff I didn't even say I was going to, but that I was invited to. So make sure that you click on that you're planning to attend, and then you should get reminders. I used to send email reminders out before it started, and I had somebody that got mad at me because they didn't read their email till days later, so I don't do that anymore. And if I see, Sylvia, you lost your feed for a while, that's fine. This is recorded, and the recording is available at the same link that you got into this, and I'll usually share the link for the recording after it's done. So once we end the live, the recording will be there, and it's also closed captioned for anybody that that needs that as well. So I don't see any other questions in there, so thanks for joining us tonight. I will see you guys in 3 weeks for my next live, and some of you I'll be seeing in just a few days or next week, or seeing you at the Orlando show. Oh, when Duncan closes down, what acrylic paints will you use? So Duncan sold all of their color to Mako. Mako is coming out with initially a limited number of products. They basically looked at the line and said, these are the best sellers. This is what we're coming out with. And so right now they've only got, I don't remember how many products it was. It's quite a few, but there's a lot of products that they aren't coming out with right away. But if there's demand for more of the product, I'm sure they'll be coming out with more. So I don't think Duncan products are going away completely. I know a lot of people are worried about that, and I really don't think that is going to happen. Most of the product, there have been some raw material issues and packaging issues and stuff that Mako's been dealing with, but little by little they're coming out with all of the initial line that they had said. And if you for some reason Duncan stains aren't available at some point, Mako has an extensive line too, and we do have a kit on our website for that too. Bobby, I need to go see Luann. All right, I don't think, just scrolling down to the bottom here to see if there are any other questions. You can be at the Milwaukee show. Yes, Judy, I will be at the Milwaukee show, and I'm just going to do make and take style classes at the Milwaukee show. I'm not scheduling anything because I'll literally get home from Alabama and Florida, and then I turn around and go do another workshop, and then I get home and then basically turn around and go to the Waukesha show. So I'm just going to have make and takes there. So okay, and Lisa, I'll go in and add those foundations tonight. Do you know if Mako will make, the UM951 gold? Yeah, that one isn't available yet. We haven't gotten that in, but that will be available. I think the gold and the silver are the two metallics that they're keeping. All right. Oh, and I see, Valerie, you posted a link to the best of Duncan of what's available. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to shut it down. Thanks for joining us tonight, you guys. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you again in 3 weeks. Thanks.